Hello, my gummy bears and my teddy grams. Welcome to another episode of the One4U audio show here at youtube.com/One4U show. I am your host, Adnan Qureshi, and I am here to take you on a magical tour through many things. Lately, it's been video games. It could be about what's going on just in general. It could be about pro wrestling, or in this particular case, what's in the movies. And in this case, we'll be talking about one of the biggest movies of summer 2013, Man of Steel. And we will be celebrating that by doing One4U's very first Spoilercast! Can I get a drum roll, please? No? No drum roll? Alright, well, I guess I'll just carry on then. So as I was saying, it is a spoiler cast, which means that I will be talking freely about many of the things in Man of Steel. So if you don't want to listen to any of the spoilers, you should probably stop listening to this episode right now. But I do encourage you to still support the show and listen to episodes of 1 and 2 of One4U at the YouTube channel if you haven't already. And please continue to help and support my show, and I greatly appreciate all of you for doing so. But let's get on with the spoiler cast. Let's talk a little bit about how Man of Steel is probably one of the most polarizing pieces of media I have seen since Resident Evil 6 came out last year. Resident Evil 6 was very polarizing in its review scores. A lot of people liked it, a lot of people hated it, and it just got divided by very many different people. Whoever you ask, they'll have a different opinion. I liked Resident Evil 6 personally. I had a lot of fun playing it. Same with Man of Steel. Man of Steel had a lot of hype going into it. Big expectations, Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan on the movie, Superman at the forefront, and what it delivered was polarizing results. Also, as a lot of people really enjoyed Man of Steel, a lot of people really didn't enjoy Man of Steel. I fall into the category of really enjoying Man of Steel. I thought it was entertaining. I saw it twice, actually. I actually saw it once at the midnight showing, and I did see it once earlier today at a matinee, so I do have it a little bit fresher in my mind than I did. And coming out of the second showing, I still felt the same way I did the first time. I still really enjoyed it, even with all the negativity that was circulating about the film. I really didn't feel that much different. I enjoyed myself both times I saw that movie, and I would recommend someone go see it. So let's get started about some of the things in the movie. There was one really particularly annoying thing that I think everyone can kind of agree on, is that everyone after the movie probably felt hungry to go to IHOP or go shopping at Sears. Meaning, in this particular case, that movie had those two real big product placements during the real big fight scenes. Superman is fighting off many Kryptonians on Earth, and as he's doing it, he just happens to be fighting them in front of a Sears and through an IHOP that was also actually featured earlier in the movie. So a lot of people got hungry for pancakes during these fight scenes. Well, that was slightly annoying, and they might have made some good coin after on those particular product placements, but just the camera shots of them where the one Kryptonian is standing over Superman and you can just see the Sears logo right next to her face, that was a little off-putting. The other off-putting thing for me in Superman Man of Steel was the casting of Lois Lane. Now, Amy Adams, I think, is fantastic in many other things that she's done. She's got a really vivid personality, but that doesn't come out in this particular film. As Lois Lane, she doesn't fit, and I feel part of that is actually the way the character is written, because Lois Lane is almost kind of like a sleazy reporter. She doesn't really feel like, to me, like she does things to truly earn the trust of Superman, because she's stalking him to get a story out of him. And that's one of the things I felt like, how does a Clark Kent fall in love with a Lois Lane who is really just trying to make, her dollars off him in this particular case? But he does save her life a few times, but I don't see how that would make him want to be with a Lois Lane who he's got to save. It's like Mario trying to get the princess. This princess is always getting snatched up, and Mario's got to go, well, damn it, I got to go save her again. So that felt really annoying, is that Lois Lane as a character in Man of Steel didn't feel like someone that I should really root for or care about, in that she never did much, to me at least, to show that Superman should care for her either, other than the fact that Superman must do a lot of good. But off of that, I didn't really have that many negatives going into the movie. A lot of people thought that Michael Shannon was either a good or a bad Zod. Michael Shannon, I thought, was fantastic as General Zod. And I'll tell you why. Michael Shannon, to me, in this movie, gave Zod the motivation it needed, because a villain needs to believe that he is right, because everything a villain does isn't because necessarily he is evil. Although Michael Shannon does have some very evil moments, he believes that what he is doing is right throughout the whole movie. And if you put yourself in General Zod's perspective, you can feel that. General Zod is a character that didn't fight necessarily to destroy humanity. He fought to try and restore Krypton. He wanted his people back. He wanted to lead his people into a new era of a new Krypton. But he wanted to help them. That's what he wanted to do. He had people to help, and that was his own people. He had no feeling toward humans because those were not his people. And you really feel that plight in the end of the movie, right before the last battle with Superman, is that he has nothing left to live for at that point. He knows that all his people are stuck back in the Phantom Zone or dead. So the only thing that's left in his life to even get any solace is to try and kill Superman. Because there's nothing left after he kills if he kills Superman and he kills the humans, he's got nothing else to do. Rebuilding Krypton isn't going to do anything because the Genesis Chamber has been destroyed, and there's no way to reform his home planet and bring back any of the people that he wanted to lead and help guide into a new era of providence and good fortune for the Kryptonian race, at least. So Zod himself had a lot of great motivation. He was very strong, and he had a lot of really powerful moments, I felt. Especially like his conversation with Jor-El on the ship when he takes the Genesis Chamber out to try and get to the place where they're terraforming everything. The other thing I felt they did really well with Man of Steel is they made Superman vulnerable. And that is probably the hardest thing to do when constructing anything with Superman, is how do you make Superman vulnerable? Because Superman is Superman. Superman can do just about anything. And they did it by giving Superman villains that were other Kryptonians, so they have a lot of the same strength and abilities as Superman. So you gave him enemies that were on Superman's level. And then you also introduced a whole atmosphere thing. So when Superman is on the ship, he's got Kryptonian atmosphere to deal with that he's never encountered because he grew up on Earth, and Krypton is a much harsher environment, and it really hurts Superman, at least in those moments. But when Superman is on Earth, things are a lot more even. It's just that his enemies are just as strong as him, and that makes him a lot more of a vulnerable foe, because it's not like he can overpower or outmatch necessarily his enemies that he's fighting in this movie. The other thing that they did that I think was very smart is not introduce Kryptonite in this movie, which means that we have something that can make Superman vulnerable for a future movie. So in the next Man of Steel movie, or if they decide to go with a Justice League of America movie, which I hear is being planned, they have something to weaken Superman, to not make it so he's just an invincible guy who can't be stopped. Kryptonite is going to be a huge part in a future Superman movie. And speaking of future Superman movies, I think it's going to be interesting to see who they choose as the villain, because we did see some LexCorp logos during the big fight scene with Zod. So, you could have Lex Luthor there, and Lex Luthor is going to need Kryptonite if he's going to fight Superman, because there's no way that Lex Luthor is going to be able to fight off Superman with the power that he showed off in Man of Steel. There's two other main Superman villains I can think of, just because I'm not a huge Superman guy, that they could use. I thought of Bizarro. Bizarro is going to be very strange to try and work into a future Superman movie, just because I'm not sure Bizarro is a character that will translate well to a movie screen. But I wouldn't mind if they tried, because Bizarro is essentially Superman as well. But since he's backwards and reversed, he would make for a lot of interesting interplay and a little conflict that might happen with Superman going, I'm fighting myself, what is with this? And the other one would be Doomsday. Doomsday is going to be almost nigh invincible too, and Doomsday is a Kryptonian creature himself. So Doomsday would play out very interestingly, I think, if they use him in a Superman movie. I actually remember the third one. I remember Brainiac. Brainiac is someone who is mentally unstoppable and has very many different forms and designs that we've seen through his history. So Brainiac, I think, would also be another very interesting character to try and translate into film to fight off the Superman character. So regardless, I think where they've went with Man of Steel is that they have a lot left open that they can still go with. With Man of Steel 2 or Justice League of America, you've got stuff you can still play with in the universe. You didn't introduce like everything about Superman in the first movie, which I think was a good call. You have places to go. You didn't blow your load on everything there. So we know that there's probably going to be another Superman movie. It did very well in its first box office draw. It leaves off with Superman Clark Kent starting to work at the Daily Planet, so they're probably going to do something with him doing a lot more investigating in the next Superman movie. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go from Man of Steel. I hope that in Man of Steel 2, Superman finally fights Goku, because let's be honest, no matter how you felt about that movie, there's a lot of people that seem to think the same thing that I thought when they were watching some of the fight scenes, is that it felt like we could get another Dragon Ball Z movie. Let's get another Dragon Ball Z movie. Let's get one that's actually a Dragon Ball Z movie, because the way the fight scenes played out made me feel that it's totally doable. We need a Dragon Ball Z film with the Man of Steel special effects, and it would look perfect. And also Superman needs to fight Goku, because, well, that would also be another person that could go toe-to-toe with Superman. I don't care what the death battle says. Superman would fight Goku, and Goku would win. Anyway, so that was the first ever One4U Spoilercast. I think it was an interesting first experiment. I'd like to hear your feedback and your comments on it. I know that some of you probably are going to horribly disagree with my opinion on Man of Steel, and some of you are going to agree with me. That's because this thing is polarizing. But we can all agree that Man of Steel is a film that got us all talking, that Man of Steel is a film that people aren't going to forget this year, regardless of whether you liked it or you hated it. And we can also agree that General Zod, being the last DLC character for Injustice, is going to be pretty badass. Okay, maybe that's just me and the other Injustice fans, but still, I like General Zod so much in this movie, I can't wait to play as him in Injustice. So anyway, leave your comment and your feedback, your ratings, your shares, your subscriptions, all that on the first Spoilercast. Please continue to help support the show. Thanks again for your support early on in the show, just period. I really can't thank any of you guys enough. And also feel free to follow me on Twitter at @TheDashingAdnan. And this was the very first Spoilercast, and this has been One4U.